Why you should become as powerful as possible. Edward Bernays, the man who created the archetype of the modern elite, inherited his elitist beliefs from his uncle, Sigmund Freud. They thought that man was basically an animal, immoral, dangerous, and therefore must be controlled. Bernays would take Freud's teaching, including psychoanalysis, and build these into his propaganda for corporations and governments. Embedded in the entire worldview of the powerful is that people must be controlled by an invisible government of high-status elite. Otherwise, humanity's worst impulses will rise to the surface. This raises an obvious problem. Controlled by who? Other dangerous, immoral humans. As Milton Friedman asked, just tell me where in the world you find these angels who are going to organize society for us. Bernays believed he was one of these angels fit to rule, and he advertised his public relations services to anyone who desperately wanted to control others. It shouldn't be surprising that this allowed the worst type of people to ascend to the highest positions in society. As J.R.R. Tolkien put it in a letter to his son, the most improper job of any man, even saints, who at any rate were at least unwilling to take it on, is bossing other men. Not 1 in a million is fit for it, and least of all, those who seek the opportunity. The solution to this problem is hinted at in yet another quote, this time from Bertrand Russell. The whole problem with the world is that fools and fanatics are always so certain of themselves, and wiser people so full of doubts. The people who have risen to power are fools and fanatics. Meanwhile, normal, competent, rational people have sat on the sidelines and let the sociopaths run the show. We doubt our own abilities, fearing our influence over others' lives will hurt them. To desire power seems wrong, and as a result, we leave running society to the worst people. These leaders gave us the economic and cultural disaster we are in now. If you don't want to live under their influence, the obvious step is to replace the institutions they use to control your life. Cryptocurrency is a great example. By breaking the monopoly on money and banking, we can dilute the power of the central banks and governments. And in tumultuous times, it is easier than ever to topple entrenched systems. The elite have become dinosaurs without the dexterity to adapt to sudden changes. Bernays saw it too, how the common man rose in power to rival and replace kings. The steam engine, the multiple press, the public school, that trio of the Industrial Revolution, have taken the power away from kings and given it to the people. The people actually gained power which the king lost. For economic power tends to draw after it political power, and the history of the Industrial Revolution shows how that power passed from king and the aristocracy to the bourgeoisie, and at last even the bourgeoisie stood in fear of the common people, for the masses promised to become king. Today, however, a reaction has set in. The minority has discovered a powerful help in influencing majorities. It has been found possible so to mold the minds of the masses that they will throw their newly gained strength in the desired direction. In the present structure of society, this practice is inevitable. Whatever of social importance is done today, whether in politics, finance, manufacture, agriculture, charity, education, or other fields, must be done with the help of propaganda. Propaganda is the executive arm of the invisible government. The next step is for the common man to once again replace these elite with new systems. After all, they are leftovers from the industrial age, and this is the dawning of the information age. It was the Enlightenment that allowed the people to take their power back from kings and nobles. This led to the benefits of industrialization, which gave the people more wealth. But it was the industrial age that again centralized power in the hands of the few. The information age is the natural second phase of enlightenment. It has the power to decentralize control back to the people, to the individual. This is the natural pendulum swing from centralized global control over everything from money to military might. And that is why there will be so many opportunities to join the elite as the world once again becomes more local, without losing the benefits created by a global, lightning speed communication and information sharing. By decentralizing power, people rise through ability. You get powerful by serving others, as opposed to gatekeeping. That is how the current elite operate, by centrally controlling positions of power in the institutions which the masses rely on. Control a few key positions in higher education, the media, the government, and the banks, and you essentially control everything. But freedom levels the playing field. Competition creates alternatives, and alternatives mean you cannot be as easily controlled. To gain power, people have tried voting, protesting, secession, armed guerrilla uprisings. Less deadly and more productive is to simply dilute the power of the elite by building our own spheres of influence. Like wealth, power is not a zero-sum game. You can create more of it. You can grow power in your own area of expertise. This pandemic may prove to strengthen local power centers. But to make sure the old elite don't take control of the new world, we have to study their tactics and understand how they rose to power in the first place. Remember, to sell cigarettes, Bernays tapped women's empowerment. To sell bananas, he stoked fear of communism. It wasn't about the product. It was about the emotions he could attach to it. He did it unethically, but the method can be used for good or evil. Some people say that these tactics of influence should be off limits. Indeed, the prevailing attitude is to shame anyone who outwardly admits to using influence or seeking power. It is the method of prohibition, and prohibition never works, unless you consider the real purpose of prohibition. The mafia, cartels, gangs, and governments love prohibition. Not because it limits the supply of whatever is banned, say drugs, but because it provides a monopoly on the supply of the contraband. Here, the prohibited item is influence. Therefore, only gangs, cartels, and governments use it. But this is a manipulation to keep the tools of power out of your hands. They attach a negative emotion to their own behavior in order to monopolize their tactics for gaining and keeping power. It's like trying to fight a war with swords while your enemy uses guns, because your enemy has convinced you that guns are evil. The only solution, therefore, is to even the playing field by picking up the big guns and learning to use them. The way to move forward is twofold. 1. Become powerful enough to protect against the elite. 2. Become powerful enough to destroy them from the inside. 1. By exposing the tactics of the elite, it makes them harder to use for nefarious purposes. When large swaths of the population understand the tactics of the elite, it inoculates society against them, like a herd immunity. Studies have shown that being aware of a manipulative tactic makes you less likely to allow it to color your views. Robert Cialdini explains this in his book, Persuasion. Persuasion is about ticking the right psychological triggers before making a request or a pitch. For instance, in one experiment, women who were asked out on a rainy day were less likely to say yes compared to a sunny day. However, when their attention was brought to the weather before they were asked out, this effect was erased. Just being aware of the bad weather made them subconsciously account for its potentially biasing impact. So being aware of the tactics of the elite will render their manipulative tactics useless. But if those psychological triggers are used positively, people will be aware of them, but not mind. For instance, we all know certain headlines get us to click. But this is only annoying when it is clickbait, meaning the headline was exaggerated or misleading. The problem is that the content did not deliver on the promise of the headline. But you wouldn't fault a publication for writing a catchy headline if it actually delivered the information promised. This holds true even if you recognize that the headline played on a psychological trigger, like using a numbered list to get your attention. Those who truly have a beneficial product, important message, or useful service to spread will not suffer from attaching emotion to their pitch. If you are being genuine, you won't suffer from using most sales tactics. That's why ethical people will benefit if they, as Bernays puts it, understand the mental processes and social patterns of the masses. A position of power among the elite allows you to destroy the old guard with the Trojan horse. Growing new power is an important way to compete. This is similar to how we see an industry upset by a new service. The dinosaur may be large, but he cannot maneuver against the Ubers, Airbnbs, and Elon Musks. But there are also positions in the old guard structure up for grabs. The elite don't see the world changing. They're like Joe Biden continuing to sniff women's hair after the #MeToo movement. If the elite think you are part of their club, their secrets start flowing. They let the guard down and expose their true character. This leaves them open to all sorts of attacks. Eventually, their infiltration and exposure cause the old guard to collapse, unable to continue their sick ways for fear of retribution from the people they have been abusing. Remember, the competition to occupy the entrenched positions of power is largely an elite versus elite game. So moving forward, we will discuss how to use the elite's own tactics of control and manipulation against them.
Subscribe below for more content like this. This is actually an excerpt from a longer report. If you want to read that or listen to it right now, follow the link below. Thanks for watching.